Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
And welcome back to FreedomFest 2016 from Planet Hollywood, Las Vegas, Nevada. Some great events going on today. The final day, it is the 16th of June, July 2016. I was out late last night on the first one, to admit it. We're speaking with an author who wrote two books. One of them is called A Theory of Objectivist Parenting. The other one, I love the title of this. It's called The Three Little Pigs, or To Survive, You Must Plan and Work. Both are written by Ms. Roslyn Ross, who's with us right now. Good afternoon, morning? Morning. It's still morning. Good morning.
Yeah. Good morning.
How are you today?
I'm doing great. I'm having a great time.
So, you've written these two books. You said you're a mother. You live on a farm in Nicaragua, which is just amazing. What brought you to write these two books, and what are you hoping people take home from it?
Well, as a mom, I was extremely frustrated by how classic children's stories that teach us really important values have been changed. I don't know how long it's been since you've read The Three Little Pigs, but in the versions that I checked out from the Los Angeles Public Library, I checked out over a dozen, maybe close to 24 versions of Three Little Pigs. The two irresponsible pigs that build the straw house and the stick house, they no longer get eaten by the wolf. Now they move in with the pig that built the brick house.
Wait, what?
And he's happy to support them all winter long.
Yep. I see. All right. I didn't
know this.
No, I didn't know this either.
It gets better. It gets better. The little red hen who bakes the bread all by herself, she no longer eats it all by herself. She now
shares
decides
it,
to share it. And the ant and the grasshopper does not die. The grasshopper survives. So
it's amazing. You know, we talk all the time on our show about indoctrination of our youth, and usually we focus on college because that's where a lot of it starts. But now, and I didn't know this, so now it's obviously being rolled back. And I know that schools have gone the way of everybody wins, nobody loses, everyone's at fault when somebody's at fault, and everyone's okay when everyone's okay. But I didn't realize the extent that it is starting to go on, and this is something that, as a parent, I take personally. I can see why we all would take that personally, because it's setting an unrealistic standard for our children as they progress through life.
And getting them, I mean, your metaphysical orientation is in you before you're 5. So it's making sure that your orientation towards the world is collectivist and socialist and...
You know, all values that we see work repeatedly, never. I'm pretty sure, right? Never?
I'm trying to think back when it worked one time.
One time.
It was no, it never. No,
last night we split nachos.
That's true.
That worked
because it was. But I still, no.
Yeah.
And balloons. Remember across the way they had balloons. They had 4 balloons.
Right.
And we thought it wasn't fair because we didn't have any.
So we took all 4 of them.
That sounds fair.
Right, because the next step from socialism, communism, and we were bigger than they were. And so that's how it worked out. No. But it's a very frightening way to raise our children. And I've had a couple experiences like this with my son, who's now in, they call it pre-K, but he's 6 years old, where it does have my favorite thing that happens that drives me absolutely insane is, if 2 kids now in elementary school or any public school system get into any sort of altercation, they both get in trouble. So it doesn't matter if one kid was the aggressor and one kid was not and just defending himself in the corner, they both get suspended. And I had an argument with a teacher about this because I said, this is not, you're supposed to be preparing our children for life. And this is not reflective as to what happens in real life. In real life, if you're a victim, you don't go to jail as long as as well as the person who's the suspect. So you're setting them up for these false ways of life that just aren't realistic. And this is another example.
And way to make the victim feel more like a victim.
Oh, yeah, right? Why would you fight back in the future? Or why would you think about fighting back? And we talk all the time that we're not, but by and large, we're people wanting us to raise these sheep children who are just aren't going to be able to fend for themselves. I mean,
it's scary.
Have you ever seen a kid whose iPhone runs out of a battery and he doesn't know how to do anything else? They just like fall to the ground and start crying until somebody shows up and gives them power. Like they're not prepared for reality. They're not prepared for life. Everybody wins. Everybody gets a trophy. So I did not know about the children book changes, and now I'm actually aggravated.
Well, I'm not I'm curious to know if it's happening everywhere, because I live in California, and this was the Los Angeles Public Library, and I would like to know, I would like people in other states like Texas to look into their public library. I want to know if this is happening everywhere or just where I live.
I do know that with Common Core, they've actually taken a lot of the literary books out. So a lot of the classics are no longer, they're teaching like abridged versions, and they're teaching like select
Okay,
chapters
so it is
of classics.
it is everywhere.
It is happening everywhere, yeah. The states that have the Common Core curriculum, and there was some big pushback at first for that. And that's why charter schools are so huge. My kids are all in a charter school where that doesn't happen, thank God. And my kid had a self-defense issue, and the school was, was good with it. I was very happy. But we are starting to see that. And so this is where I think parents have to really be involved to make sure. But how many are?
Well, and how many? I mean, you have to catch this. I mean, how many pay attention? They read the Three Little Pigs to your kids at school, and your kid is like, "Oh, they read the Three Little Pigs," and it would never occur to you that it's a completely different story.
Yes. Right. Well, and we've seen this time and again, but the other place we see this when they're teaching history, right? When they're teaching about the Constitution, they talk about the Second Amendment says, and you see this in textbooks now, the Second Amendment guarantees the government's right to bear arms. Am I wrong? We've seen that in some of the Common Core books. When they talk about 9/11, which is another big one, especially I grew up in the Northeast, but the whole country felt it, they are now leaving out the fact of why the perpetrators of 9/11, the terrorists, did what they did, what their inspiration was. They're making them more into like street thugs versus part of a humongous terrorist organization that was trying to undo our country and destroy it. So they're starting to, and this is what liberalism, in my opinion, does, is they like to pad things to make it seem nicer, but I've always said the end goal is to make people more compliant to a false narrative.
Well, yeah.
So what do you want to accomplish with these books?
So I want to give a voice to people who are really not interested in, and also give them some help, because I look out there looking for books to read to my son. I'm on top of this, and I look for movies that I can show him and books that I can show him that aren't going to be part of the indoctrination system, and there's not very many. So I wanted to start writing them, and I wanted to share the chorus of my book for you guys.
Please.
Because I want you to understand, you don't need to try to hunt down a version of this book from the 1800s. My book is really good, and so I'll read the chorus. So the three pigs are named Hillary, Carl, and Ludwig. Ludwig is the responsible pig. And he looks at their houses and he says, that will not hold when the winter winds blow. For better or for worse, we will reap the life we sow. We live in the north where the great wolves howl. To survive, we must plan with such beasts on the prowl. We will face the effects of the choices we make. We must choose wisely, for our lives are at stake. And then the moral at the back is, if you want to survive, you must plan and prepare. Build your life with a strong foundation, with hard work and care. If you want to thrive, prepare even more. As one thing is certain, troubles will come to your door. The choice to be lazy must be seen with clear eyes. When it comes to survival, the choice is only live or die.
Wow.
And it's so true.
Awesome.
Bravo.
Absolutely.
But it's true, and our kids aren't seeing this. It is about hard work. That's how this country was founded. That's how
they're not getting that message.
And that's how any society actually progressed. And I love the left throws out progressing all the time. But in order to successfully progress as a person, you have to constantly keep striving. Yeah. You can't just walk in. I use analogies like this all the time, but I couldn't walk in, photocopy your book, and then send it out and say, "Hey, I wrote this." But that's kind of what's being taught now is you don't have to do the work yourself. You can just take other people's credit.
And don't even worry about it. You'll be taken care of. It doesn't really matter. It's not your fault. We'll
right.
take care of you.
Yeah, it's a collective project. I love that. So is in prison. My favorite part, too, is one of the screw-up pigs is called Hillary. I think that's very, very appropriate.
Oh, and the other one is called Carl.
Yes. No, But the Hillary one...
But the Hillary one is more current.
Right, exactly. And I'm guessing the Hillary one's the worst of the worst, so that's appropriate as well. Does Hillary end up in prison at the end of the book? No? Okay.
She does get eaten, though.
So in a way, she does end up in a prison.
Now, is Bill the name of the wolf?
No, Bill's the philanderer down the way.
I did not... No, the wolf is not Bill. The wolf does not have a name. He's just the wolf.
He's just the wolf.
But great idea.
Thank you. Are you going to be writing more books?
Oh, yeah. I have to redo all of them. Are you kidding? I've written the next.
War and Peace is going to be very difficult for you to redo. Just so you know, that's a huge undertaking. I don't know quite how you're going to do that.
Well, maybe skip War and Peace and do the Brothers Karamazov and that other one.
Sure, if you want to slack, I guess. That's
fine. If you want to go the easy way out. You also wrote another book called A Theory of Objectivist Parenting.
Yeah.
Tell us about that a little bit, please.
Well, so one thing that I've noticed among my type of parents, my type of people, is that
white people?
No, freedom-oriented people.
Why are you pointing at yourself and at us?
Freedom people.
Welcome to the Sackheads Radio Show, where we have fun and we make a racial joke out of everything.
God, I'm from California. Do you know how scary that is?
Yes,
no.
Yes we are too. So that's why we bring it up all the time.
Okay, so but luckily I don't live there anymore. So one thing I've noticed among a lot of freedom-oriented parents actually do it. They have a natural oh wow, I don't own my children, and this is obvious to me from day one, and they are very respectful with their children. But other parents, and a lot of parents, it's hard not to. Academia advises us to be benevolent authorities to our children, kind of somewhere between a drill sergeant and a loving nanny. And this is because there was a study done, a very famous study. Even Nathaniel Branden and Leonard Peikoff cite this study, and that's that they studied warmly authoritative, coldly authoritative, warmly permissive, and coldly permissive parents. And then they said the warmly authoritative parents have the best kids. And I'm like, that's awesome. Let's do a study in which, do you prefer to exploit or be exploited in a trade? Which would you rather? I mean, it's a false dichotomy. That's not a real choice.
I'd rather be exploited. I mean, it's just easier
I'm exploited
that way.
all the time.
Right.
Yeah, studies show it's better to be exploited in the trade than to exploit everyone. It's no surprise to me, looking out at the world, a bunch of parents are raising their children. They act like a benevolent authority. They act like the drill sergeant nanny or the wonderful benevolent dictator. That's what it's called. And then they're shocked when those children grow up and create a government in that image. Our government today is the benevolent nanny, or they're trying the benevolent nanny drill sergeant.
Well, and I think it's even more shocking that you could have 4 classes in general when you have so many kids of so many different ways of life. And one of the things that I've always said is every kid, this whole idea that every child is the same is out of control. There are so many different personalities amongst kids, which is why we have so many different jobs in this world, which is why we have so many
need so many drugs to make you the same.
Well, and that's the other, exactly, that's the other thing. And, you know, I grew up in an old Irish household where you had, if you screwed up, you got in trouble. But if you did well,
you got in trouble.
You got in trouble. No, it wasn't a big party because you were supposed to do things.
Right.
That's your job as a person, is you're supposed to help and take care of your family and take care of your loved ones. And I didn't do any of that really well when I was a kid. Ask my parents, they'll tell you. But when they come out with certain studies and they're like, oh, if you're not doing it like this, you're just way off. And I said, well, have you ever met my kid?
Right.
My kid doesn't fit into the criteria of the thousands of other kids or the 200 that you did a study on. And I think that so many people listen to these studies and try to adopt them into their lifestyle when it doesn't match who they are at all.
Yeah.
You're always going to have sheep. You're always going to have the sheepdog. You're always going to have the wolves. And sometimes you have stronger sheep. Sometimes you have weaker sheepdogs. And sometimes you have the wolves. But,
And your children need to learn how to recognize those people and not be told that there are some versions of the Three Little Pigs today where the wolf turns out to be a nice guy and I invite him in for barbecue.
You're just going to make me mad.
Yeah.
You're just going to make me mad.
No, you have no idea. When I was reading all these...
No, that sounds awesome because they invite the wolf in so that they can then take the wolf out and then barbecue the wolf.
No.
That's
but what should happen is that
I'm writing a book too, and guess how mine's
What should happen is the wolf barbecues them at their own barbecue.
Right. Yeah, you moron.
Yeah.
Well done letting me in. I mean, these books, if someone shows up at your door with the intent to kill you, you should invite him in for barbecue.
Well, just because I know the layout of my house and I could out-tactic them inside, right, and then barbecue them up.
If only that were the idea.
In theory, but that's not where it goes. That's the problem.
You can use that idea and write another Three Little Pigs book.
Okay, so I'll redo it.
Call it the Two Little Sackheads.
No, another one.
The Two Little Sackheads.
Yeah, call it the Two Little Sackheads. And, let's have some sort of socialist being or communist being be the bad guy. and we just light them up. It only has to be like a 2-page book.
So is this geared towards the parents?
So a theory of objectivist parenting, it's extremely concise. I don't waste anyone's time.
Yeah, and you didn't use big words, which I appreciate as I was flipping through it.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I'm Portuguese, so it doesn't. I like big words. Don't with me. I just.
He still sounds out the.
No, it's I don't waste your time. I edited it. I edited the heck out of it. I was like, I don't have time. So it's
parents are busy.
Parents are busy, and so I cut right to it, and it's had a great reception. People really like it generally.
And where can we find them?
They're both on Amazon.com.
Awesome. And have you started your next project? I know we talked a little bit about it.
I have written.
Do you have your eyes on the next project?
No, I have like a lot of rough drafts of a lot of. I get to pick what I want to work on every day, and I have my next parenting book, which is Raising Your Children in Reality. That's my next one, and then I have my next kids book. I'm redoing The Little Red Hen and The Ant and the Grasshopper, and then I wanted to do the opposite of The Three Little Pigs as well, because The Three Little Pigs talks about how if you want to survive, you better work. But there's also overworking. So after you're done working, after you're thriving, after you're kicking butt, it's time to have a rest. It's not time to, I'm not advocating to, whip yourself to death and be a workaholic.
Well,
so,
I come from an Irish background, so literally we work from the moment we're born until we die.
No, that's not workaholic. That's alcoholic.
No. And then we fit that in between somehow.
Got it, okay.
You have 2 aholics.
I get confused. I get confused on which one is which.
Well, and we talked about that a little bit last night, too.
Yeah, you want to eat healthy enough to live a long life, but unhealthy enough because you're going to die anyway. So who
right,
cares?
so you might as well enjoy it. And
Yeah.
the same thing goes to work. What good is all your success? And I know a lot of driven people. I'm not one of them.
Well, you get driven sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes.
So
yeah, no, I mean to from the airport and to
Right.
whatever. But I know a lot of driven, work-oriented people who put a lot of effort and become very, very successful, and then
Didn't
never
enjoy their life.
and then never enjoy it.
Yep.
And it shows you that it is a balance, but it has to be your choice, and you have to do it the right way.
Yep.
Where can everybody find you?
Well,
And don't say at FreedomFest in Las Vegas right now, because obviously not everyone's going to be here.
Well, I live on a farm in Nicaragua, so they're probably not going to find me. But
I
online,
kind of meant your internet presence.
Oh, my internet.
I wasn't
presence.
inviting everyone to your house like the Three Little Pigs.
Oh my God. So RoslynRoss.com can direct you to my blog, which is roslynross.blogspot.com. On Twitter, I'm Roslyn at the Farm, but I don't really tweet very often. I'm on Facebook. I have a page called Raising Children is an Act of Philosophy. And then I also use my page, Roslyn Ross, to share real conversations that I have with my son, because people have really responded to how I talk. And that's what you need to know is you're like, okay, I understand I'm not supposed to say this, but what do I say instead? Mm-hmm. And so I've gotten a lot of positive feedback for helping people with those ideas. Oh, and I have a YouTube channel that is pretty... I actually have some good YouTube comedy, and then I have some lectures and talks online.
Now, are you going to be, or maybe this is on your horizon, I don't know, is there a book involving like how parents to communicate, like a specific communications book?
Well, so at the back of my book, I actually have lists, my top 10. So I ended up writing this book because I read somewhere around 700, 800, I'm close to 1,000 now maybe, books on parenting. And I read 1,000 books on parenting so that you don't have to. At the back of my book, there's, if you have a toddler, the top 10 books. If you have a young child, the top 10 books.
Wow.
If you have an older child, the top 10 books. And I really narrow it down for you because there's so much crap out there.
Yeah.
So many just bad advice. And I feel like most parenting books should be called How to Raise a Statist. So I do consider that a really important thing is the list at the back. I don't want to rewrite what's already been written. The book, How to Talk So Children Will Listen and Listen So Kids Will Talk, that is a fantastic book on communicating with children. And I can help you with specific situations that book doesn't cover. But in the meantime, that's the book you want.
Excellent.
Outstanding.
Right.
Roslyn Ross, thank you so much for joining us. Check her out, roslynross.com, and on YouTube and Twitter occasionally when she gets around to it. Thank you so much for joining.
Don't judge her for
I don't
that.
even want to talk to you about Twitter.
Don't judge her for that.
He actually thought it doesn't matter. Live from the Freedom
I can't find the
Fest.
power button. I don't even understand how it works.
Live from Freedom Fest 2016. You listen to the SHR Media Network.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.